Hi, this is Tim Hamilton, the co-host of the Maryland Crabs, and I'm here with a Crabcake for your listening pleasure. What's a Crabcake? Well, it's not quite a full episode, it's just a little snippet. Stay tuned and check it out. Make sure you check us out on themarylandcrabs.com. You can follow us on Twitter at MD Crabs Podcast or find us on Facebook at the Maryland Crabs Podcast. Don't forget, subscribe, rate us, iTunes. Go there now.
Hello? Is this Tim?
Hey, Paula, how are you? Sorry, I had to put on headsets, and we call them cans in the biz.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, no, we don't. So I'm calling from the Maryland Crabs Podcast here in Annapolis, Maryland, where you're going to be this weekend on December 15th.
Yeah, I love it there.
You come much?
Well, I come every year right around now.
Oh, that's right, you do. I've seen that every year. Let's see, you were in the Wilbur in Boston, then you do Annapolis, and then off to San Francisco. So you're kind of doing the little town in between the huge towns. Yeah,
I go to Annapolis right around this time every year, and it's, it's always beautiful. And I think I've been going for something like 15 years, really long time. And it's one of the smallest venues that I do. I mostly do theaters.
Yep.
But there's a couple places that I started doing a long time ago, and I enjoyed them so much that I just stayed there. And that's one of them.
It's a great room. We were talking to someone a couple weeks ago who's doing comedy down here, and it's just a great room. Yeah,
it really is. You're right smack in the middle of the crowd, you know. I mean, it's not in the round, but the stage is, I think, an inch high. And I like that it's a music venue. There's a feeling about a room that's had a lot of music.
It's got a vibe. Yeah, you've got John Hyatt.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
Right. So you think that bar is kind of set low. So you're like, people are used to dancing in the aisles, and here I am telling my jokes.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're an East Coast person, though, originally, right? You started in the Boston scene, right?
I did. Yeah, I started in '79.
That was what was that place up there? It was like the Ding Ho. Was that the right name of it?
The Ding Ho in Inman Square in Cambridge. It was a
Chinese food restaurant.
Western-style Chinese restaurant, yep.
And that's where that Boston scene back then was incredible. That was like Stephen Wright, Dennis Leary. I think Bob Goldthwait was out there. I think. Yep.
Yeah, it was. It was wild and woolly, I'll say that. In fact, the guy who owned it, he had no idea what hit him. He had this little Chinese restaurant, and I'm sure that it had never been full in the history of his business. And the restaurant was on the other side of this, so you could go into the bar and never see the restaurant. But that place was packed and rocking, and especially on, I think the big open mic night was Wednesday, and that's when it was really crazy, because there'd be 30 comics wanting to go up, and for the audience, it cost like $1 to get in or something, and so it was a great deal for everybody.
They were all from Emerson College, I think, where they just cranked out comics in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, Dennis had gone to Emerson. Goldthwait didn't.
I think Stephen Wright did. I think.
I believe Stephen Wright did. Yeah, there was a bunch of them. I'm not sure, honestly, that any of them got anything from Emerson College that made them able to do what they were doing.
It wasn't like Harvard, who cranks out like the comedy writers. It just they happened to go to Emerson.
Yeah. It may be more Emerson benefiting from its students than the students benefiting from Emerson. I'm not certain, really. But because the truth is, the way you become a stand-up comic is you go to open mic nights. You think of things that you think are funny. You write them down on a piece of paper. You remember them. And then you go on stage in small sets, like 5 minutes, and you develop your relationship with the audience and overcome your fears, and that's how you do it.
It's cheaper than a therapist, yeah.
So you don't, a college or a class or this or that, those are all a little bit snake oil, I think.
I've seen comedy clubs where some of the comics, they have time during the day, so they're offering those classes for stand-up comedy. Yeah. I don't think that's something you can teach as a timing.
No, I don't
plus
think
you can't. You can't impart that mental pain in there either.
It's a relationship with the audience, and so and your fellow students are it's not nothing, but it's not great. What's funny is in the old days when we would all be waiting to go on. And there was the audience, and then there was all these comics waiting to go on. Every now and then they'd say somebody was a comedian's comedian, which is really like the kiss of death for a performer, because what that generally means is
you played at the back of the room.
Right, that the comics are laughing, and sometimes the comics are laughing because what the person is doing is so alienating to the crowd that it's funny. And so it's really not the way you want to sharpen your skills.
It's not lucrative.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, but it's funny for the wrong reason.
With the exception of maybe Brian Regan. We were talking about that a few weeks ago, where he's just absolutely hilarious on any level, whether you're a comedian or not. But then you went off to San Francisco after that. Was that like mostly Cobb's out? Because I know that was really big in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, there were Cobb's was just getting started, like right after I showed up. There was a bunch of clubs. There was a place called the Punchline, which was the sort of fancy corporate club. And then there was my favorite club ever, which was the Other Cafe, which was over in the Haight-Ashbury district, or just up the street from there. And there was Cobb's Comedy Club, which was over the years has been in like 3 or 4 different locations. It started out just an incredible dive. Once again, this Asian family owned it. And, somebody went in and said, hey, could we do, comedy here? And I don't think the people had any idea what they were saying yes to. But then the next thing they knew, this place that, rarely had that many customers in it was packed night after night. So they're like, yeah, we like this comedy thing. But it moved a number of times.
The last time I was there was at the Cannery. I think that was the last time.
Yeah, it sort of moved to more and more glamorous locations, and but lots of good stuff. There was San Francisco audiences were so much fun to play to. I think they really liked things that weren't so on the nose, that were a little bit obscure sometimes. They were just fun.
Well, that was like Robin Williams, I think Dana Carvey, Kevin Meaney was out there. I like Kevin Meaney.
Kevin was out there for a while. Kevin was from, I believe, upstate New York, and they came out to San Francisco and was one of us for a long time, and then he went to Boston, and they loved him there, and then eventually went back to New York. He was great.
Those were the big 3 comedy towns back then, or even still is San Francisco, Boston, and New York. I mean, Boston comics they still crank out some great comics. I mean, edgy, but they're great.
Yeah, well, part of it is just the audiences, It's like who you're playing to means so much. Sometimes after a show, people will come up and they'll say, like, oh, we enjoyed it so much. And I said, well, I said, they go, oh, you're so good. I'd say, well, thank you, but it really has to do with who I'm playing to. So, if you play to assholes, it's not nearly as much fun.
Is there a difference between the East Coast audiences and the West Coast audiences?
Not for me, anyways. I think part of that is my crowds largely come out to see me. And so I've already passed that bar.
Oh, they know what they're expecting.
Right. So I'm not, my favorite kind of crowd has, a bunch of people who've seen me before, and then they brought with them some people who haven't. That's my favorite kind of crowd.
Where they keep nudging them? Going, wait.
Well, no, it's just good to grow the audience, and if I'm just playing to people who've seen me before, I'm not doing that. So I like having new audience members as well. But they have they've already decided for the most part. So I'm not doing a lot of winning over the whole crowd. Which I can do. But
well, your crowd work is famous. I mean, you really do work the crowd. It's amazing to watch, and you've been doing that forever too.
Yeah, well, I've been doing this job for 39 years.
I remember I saw your first. It was Cats, Cops, and Stuff. I think was that your first? That was in '90. I was in college, and I remember that
was in
one.
the '90s.
Yeah.
I'd already been at it for 10 years by the time I got there.
Isn't that amazing, though? It took you that long to get a special, and that was, when HBO had their specials and the young comedians, but now with Netflix, it seems like they kind of hand them out like candy. I don't know if some people are ready for it, and they get them very quickly, and I just don't know. I don't believe in paying your dues, but I think sometimes.
Oh, I believe in paying your dues.
Well, I mean, if you're funny, you're
paying it too.
Yeah.
As I said, there is no college for this job. The way you do this job is by doing the job. But I think sometimes, I really don't hang out with comics anymore because I work alone, so I don't have an opener or middle act or anything like that with me, and so I can't speak to what everyone thinks or does. But back many years ago when I was in clubs, sometimes people would come up to the other comics and they would say, "Oh, what'd you think? What'd you think? How was I? Do I really want to?" They're MC, and they'd say, "I really want a middle." And this guy won't hire me to middle. And I used to say to him, "You're out of your mind." I said, "Be the most incredible MC, and maybe you can even then, when you're really like a fantastic MC, maybe you could even ask for a little bit more money. But there's no real virtue to, you move from being really strong in a position, and then you move up to where you're really mediocre. You're really lost in the crowd. It doesn't really serve you. But when you get really good at something, the truth is the people hiring will look like idiots if they don't hire you, and so they will. But to constantly be arguing about whether or not you're there, it's a waste of energy, I think. And I still feel that way now. I put my energy into doing the best show I can do for each audience, and I'm not involved at all with who hires me.
So you just show up when you're scheduled, huh?
It's on my book. I go there. I get up at 3 and 4 in the morning to go to the airport, and I get to the check-in counter, and they'll say, where are you going? And I go, hold on a minute. And I take out a piece of paper, and I go, oh, okay, I'm going to Richmond.
Do you travel a lot still?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You got 3 kids, right?
They're all young adults now.
Oh.
So, actually, the only reason I don't go out for, I probably wouldn't do venues in the early part of the week anyways, just because I don't think I'd have much of an audience for it. But my schedule is usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then I fly home on Sunday and do some chores, and I'm out again. But I have a house full of animals, and so I have to come home to take care of them. So
you put the food down on Friday and then just rush home on Sunday night, hoping they didn't finish it all?
No, I have someone who stays and takes care of them for me, but they don't want to stay for a week. So and I have 14 cats. It's not easy to get
Do you seriously
someone.
have 14 cats?
I do, yeah. And so you can't really just put food down and leave. It requires a lot of cleaning.
Don't you worry that they're going to turn on you at some point? I just, I like cats, but then, when you get that large, a kettle of cats, right? Or clutter, I would get nervous.
No, they don't. They haven't yet turned on me. I just read like a detective novel where one of the corpses, one of the deceased, was nibbled by their cat.
They'll do that.
I don't know if I think you think so.
Yeah, they'll do. You know what? I read about that the other day, and this is taking a turn here. But like dogs will protect you, like when you're deceased, if you have a stroke or something like that. But cats, the one who sits on your lap, that if something were to happen to you, they would turn on you very quickly.
I don't think that's true.
I wouldn't want to test it.
Yeah.
They seem very utilitarian.
We'll find out. All right. So if you don't hear from me for a while, come and see if my body's still whole.
Now you have me worried.
Yeah. I'm not too worried.
Watch yourself.
No, I'm not worried at all. No, the only problem I have with them is that they insist on crossing in front of me without the light. And so I'm forever tripping over them. But I don't think I've really built up hostilities with them, so I think I'm fine.
We have 2, and I think that's a lot.
Yeah.
I don't deal. So but you have a podcast too. So you also have.
I do.
Nobody listens to. Oh, go ahead. I stole your thunder.
Nobody listens to Paula Poundstone.
Yeah, you're setting the bar low. What do you put it there? It's because it's. So if someone's listening, you go, okay, great. We got a couple listeners, and it's relatively new. Exactly. Yes, it's weekly.
It is weekly, and we call it a comedy advice podcast. We bring on people to talk about, their expertise in different areas that are things that, people just need to get through life.
Let me read this. So where else can you find advice on topics from how to keep a friend to how to translate your Verizon bill or should I get a penis piercing? That's right off the website. And the answer to that, of course, is no.
Oh, yeah,
that is the answer. That is the answer. It's a short episode.
I have to say that the person that we interviewed on the topic seems so normal.
I'm going to say that they're not. I think that's going to be like, still waters run deep sort of thing.
Well, they cover it up really well then.
Well,
other than that clanking sound.
And getting stopped at airline security and trying to explain that.
I had one before that called Live from the Poundstone Institute that I made with NPR. That was very fun to do, but it was we had endowment problems. It was costly, and so we did 10, and then Adam and I reconvened. My partner Adam Felber, and we came up with Nobody Listens to Paula Poundstone, and it's just plain fun. There's some information shared for sure. If you listen and you didn't find it funny, you probably will at least still walk away with some sort of useful information. But I think people find it funny so far.
Well, podcasts are fun because I don't think there's that pressure that you have with radio. I mean, first of all, it's recorded.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
it's radio without the discipline, really.
Hey, and that's great.
Yeah, it does allow for. It's sort of like my act in a way. You know. It always makes me laugh when people say, crowd work, because if it's some sort of, I don't know, some sort of, skill or
like
what it is it's having a conversation. I have conversations with audience members. The difference is between me and other people who don't do that, I guess, or who do it in a different way, is that I allow the conversation to take shape, and I'm not in a big, huge hurry. And I think it's a little bit like what podcasting is to radio, is that it's not real tight. But what happens as a result is that eventually you just find great stuff that really you wouldn't have found any other way. So that if you were in a big hurry, those layers and levels in that relationship doesn't have time to build, and so you don't. When the audience member says something really funny, or when I say something funny in conversation with the audience member, people have to know who it is I'm talking to in order for the joke to have a realm. And so that takes a few minutes. You don't do that instantly. I think it's a little bit like the podcasting thing. It's a little bit more laid back, a little bit more loping, but just plain fun.
We have room to explore, and that's hard to do on stage when you think everyone's watching this, and I'm kind of poking around looking for something.
Well, I asked them to turn away.
Well, I mean, there's got to be some where you're poking around and you're like, all right, this isn't working. There's just nothing there.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of allowing. It's just a matter of saying, well, this is, it's okay to do it this way. I don't have to sound exactly like everybody else. I don't have to do it at the pace of everybody else. And once I've allowed myself that permission, again, just great things, come into being. Nothing. Somebody said to me the other night, I had a guy in the front row. I forget how he identified himself, but somebody asked me if he was a plant, and.
I just pictured like a rhododendron.
First of all, that would require the E word, effort, and so no. But it was sort of funny because the conversation that I had with the guy was just nothing that anybody would plan.
And I'll let you go, but I'm curious about the book you had. You also wrote a book last year, this totally unscientific study of the search for human happiness. That fascinates me. I saw a documentary. I think it was just called Happiness. It was like a 4-part documentary on Netflix a couple of years ago where they went around the world to find people who were happy. And they had like some guy in India who collected trash and he lived in a hovel and he was just deliriously happy. And it was just because he knew his place. It was just an amazing thing. But for you undertook several endeavors to see if it made you happier.
I did. My book is a series of experiments doing things that I or other people thought would make me happy. But every chapter is written as an experiment with the hypothesis and the conditions and the variables and the qualitative and quantitative observations, etc. But the real question for me wasn't whether I would enjoy doing something. The real question was, what could I do that would leave me with a bounce? That would really sort of biochemically make me happy. So that when I went on to do my regular day, that I would still feel good. And so the analysis part of each chapter is checking in with my regular life to see how things are going. The book took several years to write because some of the experiments were very long. So in the end, it is, among other things, the story of raising my children. And it was fun to do. I heard somebody talking the other day, like a TED Talk or something, and he was saying that one of the keys to happiness was low expectations. That's
not wrong. I mean, I think he's right.
I think it's right too. I do. I also think that much of happiness is just purely biochemical.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you feel better when you exercise and you move around. I mean, the truth is, you don't feel better while you're doing it. In fact, I started years ago taking Taekwondo and self-defense with this guy, not because I care about either of those things, but because it was a grueling workout. And so I used it for my Get Fit experiment. And the truth is, yeah, you do. You feel much better when you're working out, or after. During the years in which one is working out, one feels better.
Are you a generally happy person to start with?
No, I don't think so.
No, I get that. No, you wouldn't be in comedy if you were.
I don't know. No, I don't think there's any relationship between those two things.
You don't think?
No, I think that's just an old wives' tale and a great excuse. In fact, what I find is that I didn't do a chapter where I talked about that, but I think that because I just sort of became aware of thinking in those terms, one thing I'm absolutely sure of is I have the best job in the entire world. My job is uplifting. I go tell people things that I thought of that I thought were funny, and I do it in front of a group of people who've come out to laugh for the night. And so I find that no matter where I left off in my regular life, which is sometimes just plain, biochemically depressed, which is sometimes there's some circumstantial things that are challenging, whatever it may be, I go on stage and within seconds, I am healed. Really and truly, no matter what mood or circumstance I go on in, it's just so damn much fun to laugh with other people. I'm the luckiest performer in the world.
That's amazing. Well, you can see you perform if you're listening. The Paula Poundstone, she's going to be at the Ram's Head on stage on Saturday, December 15th. There's 2 shows, right? 6:30 and 9:30?
Yeah.
And I just checked and the seats are going quickly, so you're going to want to, if you're interested, you're going to book those now. But again, that's ramsheadonstage.com for Saturday, December 15th. Hey, Paula, thanks for being on the podcast. I've been a big fan since I was in middle school, I think, in the 80s, and I can't believe I'm talking to you, and I just appreciate you being on the podcast.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and that's very flattering to hear. Thank you.
All right, Paula.
All right, you take care.
All right, thanks much. I'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been the Maryland Crabs podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them in all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.